Hey, it's Todd Graves. Welcome back to part 4 of my single plane golf swing, Play Better Golf, the Moe Norman Way book review. I'm going through the book that I wrote about Moe Norman and the single plane swing, and I'm walking you through the basic elements of how you can use the book and this video as a reference to build your single plane swing. Now, one of the things that the book is founded on here is the model of Moe Norman. And in the very first part of the book, so you can kind of reference this, if you go back to the first couple of chapters, you can kind of see that I'm using nice pictures of Moe Norman starting on his address position, and I kind of show you kind of a frame-by-frame view of every position Moe has in his golf swing. These are kind of the elements we study when we look at your swing versus Moe Norman to kind of match the model. So I always refer to these pictures here in the book. These pictures were actually taken from the photographer of Golf Digest, and they're actually really, really great photos of Moe's swing technique. Today, I want to talk and reference, which everything that I teach is referencing kind of back to the model of Moe in these pictures. But one of the things that we're going to talk about today, we've already covered in this series already, is the address position, how important the address position, ball position, and those particular elements are in Moe's swing. So make sure that you're working through these things in order, because you have to build a golf swing in the proper order. You can't jump in chapter 5 and try to learn a part of this golf swing if you don't have the correct address position. So that's kind of the way the book is written, starting you out with the basic fundamentals of address. Now, in the last section, we talked about this thing called the pivot point. When you get the address position in the correct place, the club has a club-to-body relationship. In other words, the way you set up and the tilt of the body provide a proper club-to-body positioning, which we call the pivot point. This is going to be a very important element of today because we're going to help you build a backswing today. That's one thing we're going to do. And I'm going to touch on how you use the lower body to stabilize yourself and why Moe kept his trail foot down, which you see in these pictures all the way through impact. So let's get into today's topic, which is working on the backswing, how we're going to position you in the proper backswing position related to the pivot point, which will build our swing plane, and then work you into the downswing and show you the importance of the lower body movement. And by the way, if you're having a good time and you're enjoying these segments about the single plane golf swing, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click that little bell icon to make sure you get notified anytime I produce a new video. All right, so we're going to talk about the backswing here, and in chapter 7, which we're referencing right now, I start out with talking about the length of the backswing. Now, here's the thing about where people get kind of confused, and they think, and I've seen this a lot, they think that the longer the swing they make, the farther they're going to hit the golf ball. And I want to show you that, yes, you need rotation in the backswing. You need to get a certain amount of rotation because the club needs time to produce speed. But let me tell you, this book, The Single Plane Golf Swing, that I wrote with Tim O'Connor, and by the way, I want to give a shout out to Tim O'Connor, and I want you to know who Tim O'Connor is. He's an incredible writer, and he actually wrote the book, The Feeling of Greatness, which is Moe Norman's biography. If you have a chance, don't forget to check out the biography of Moe Norman, and thanks to Tim for all the help he had with this book as well. But when we talk about backswing, people tend to think that the further you take it back, the longer you hit it. I want to show you, and a lot of the stuff that I teach you in the Single Plane Golf Swing book, there is science behind the information in this book, although Tim and I, when we wrote the book, decided that to put all the science in there really wasn't going to be the most helpful way to present instruction. So we didn't put the data in the book. We put feelings and ways of learning it and the information we thought would be the absolute most helpful to get you swinging like Moe as soon as possible. But let's just go through some of the data that will help you understand why a shorter backswing can produce equally or more velocity than swings are too long. So let me give you a quick story before we go through this, and I'll kind of reference some data here. So I'm measuring students, and I'm measuring how much rotation they have in 2 very critical points in their swing. One point is the backswing, how much rotation is here, and the next one is how much rotation is at impact, because you got to realize that the backswing is made so I can now produce speed into the downswing. We're going to talk about the backswing today. So when I make a backswing, I want to produce rotation of the body that allows the arms to lag behind, because remember, lag is where you can accumulate speed and then you're going to release that speed. I think we all understand that about a golf swing. But here's what I studied and I measured. That the average person thinks, well, turn as much as you can. So I'd see players getting to 90 degrees of rotation, so 90 degrees of torso rotation, right? So they get to 90 degrees. So, and when you study biomechanics, that's a minus 90, because this is a negative number. So they're going minus 90, okay? And then they're going to a positive 10, so their body is 10 degrees open at impact. So if you add those two rotations together, minus 90 to a positive 10, you're getting a total of 100 degrees of torso rotation. That makes sense? But here's the problem with going 90 to 10. You're going to see that problem here in a second. So now let's take Moe Norman's swing, for example. And he would take it back to between 75 and 80. Let's say it's 80, right? So less turn in the backswing. When he got to impact, he was at 35 degrees of torso rotation. So you have minus 80 to plus 35. Add those together, and you have 115 degrees of rotation. See what's happening here? So actually, with a shorter backswing, you have more rotation. I know it sounds weird, but there's some science for you talking about what's actually happening in a golf swing, because I want to get you to understand the science and the data behind what I'm teaching you. Now, let's add one more element to that. Not only do you have a little more rotation here at impact, the average guy has 10 to Moe between 30 and 35. Not only do you have more rotation, it's velocity, because what's happening is you're opening the body up, you're getting rotational speed. And when somebody only has 10 degrees, they're actually slowing down too soon. Now, if you're a person that hits behind the golf ball, or you hit it fat, or you hit it thin, here's what you're generally doing. And I see this all the time. That's why I'm mentioning this. I see people get a club, they take it back too far, their body doesn't rotate well, and they hit behind it. But what happens is, to stop from doing that, they then come over the golf ball, they move their body differently, they adjust, compensate, because they lack the proper rotation of the body coming down. You may be one of those people. The other thing you see happen is people, and this is a common one, people release early. That's just another compensation for a lack of rotation of the body. This is very important stuff, by the way, because I'm not just talking anecdotal things here. This is a common problem with a lot of golfers. That's why I bring it up in this segment. So I want to talk about proper backswing movement and how we produce the correct amount of body position rotation in the backswing, and then create the proper opening of the body rotation at impact. Now, from the top view, here's what I want you to recognize. So I have a driver in my hand here. And if you go to the top view camera, notice how, because of the tilt of my body, which we talked about in address, you see how it's pointing towards the lead side of my body, right? So you see this lead side relationship. Now from the top view, I'm going to take my lead arm off and watch what's happening to the club. Proper rotation here. Here comes the club down. Look at how at impact, the club is referencing the lead side of my body. So keep in mind, there's the club to body relationship. It's always lead sided. We're going to develop this. We're going to develop this lead side relationship, and the only way I can get this to occur is through body rotation. See that? My body is rotating. Okay, so my point here is that impact moment is a pelvis and torso rotation that allows the club to be on this side of the body. This is a big issue because Moe's swing is different than most swings because he is starting out at a tilt at address that's very different than conventional swing, but that tilt is a big part of getting the club to the lead side of the body. So remember, everything I'm teaching you is related to the start of this book: address position, tilt of the body, proper club to body relationship, and now we're into the backswing. So let me show you, in the book, you're going to see a couple of things. The first thing you're going to see is I talk about the lead arm motion. Why do I talk about lead arm motion? Well, because what I want you to learn to do is learn to move the arm in a way that is spatially correct from the torso. So in other words, the arm has to stay in a rotation relative to the torso. So there's a drill in the book, which I don't want to go through completely that drill right now, but it talks about just using the lead arm because the lead arm is your reference line. Why do I want the lead arm referenced? Is because if you think about the only straight line you have at impact, The only alignment you have with the club is with the lead arm and shoulder. So this relationship is a very important relationship because how the torso works is related to how the lead arm gets into a straight line. So there's a development drill in there in the book to teach you lead arm relationship to the body. Now let me show you a drill that we do in the book, which you're going to see it referenced in the book with a PVC. But what I'm going to do it today, I'm going to show you the drill with a trainer. Since that book, we developed a trainer. This is our single plane trainer. This trainer is helping you understand the lead side relationship. See, when I grab this, it has our training grip on it. It's an extended about 5 feet long. And you're going to see that when I hold this and tilt, do you see how it creates a lead side relationship? If you go look at that top view again, see how it's a lead side relationship. It's always on the lead side of my body. So this is what's going to produce the proper rotation of the torso at impact. See what's happening? Watch that top view. Look at the rotation of the torso and how it's able to unhinge in the correct place. See that? It's unhinging in the correct place, which allows the speed to occur right through the golf ball there. See, there's the speed production through the ball, and it's the proper path as well. So if I learn to use this correctly, guess what I get? I get proper swing plane. And swing plane is pivoting around this point, and I get proper rotational velocity through the ball, right? This is massive stuff. This is very important stuff, and it's a natural movement. Okay, so let's just show you the drill real quick, and I'm going to show you how I kind of set this up. And this is all laid out in the book for you, so you're going to kind of see me put some markers on the ground. I have a ball at ball position a few inches back, and then this ball here is straight back, and then a bit to the inside, a foot to the inside. So what I'm doing is I'm creating some markers here on the ground, and all I'm going to do here is set up and point to the marker to position 1. There's the first position, and then point to that marker at position 2. So I'm going 1 and then 2, and it's kind of a 2-part swing. It's how I'm training you in this. And then you're going to blend it together. So 1, because it's keeping that relationship. The whole idea is I'm keeping this relationship. It's a natural club-to-body relationship. It's a spatial relationship. And then 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, and I'm going to put it all together. And look, I'm exactly where Moe Norman is now. I'm at the top of my swing in that nice leverage position with proper torso rotation. So that's what you see in Chapter 7. I'm walking you through how to develop this club-to-body relationship. And by moving this relationship back into the top, you create swing plane. And you get the proper amount of rotation. So now when you come down, you have the proper rotation, and the club has a lead side relationship that produces velocity at the right spot in the bottom of the swing. So now, that's Chapter 7. There's a lot to that. Let's go into Chapter 8 and discuss that a little further. All right, so we went through the backswing. There's a lot to that. We're working in order here, and as you know, the way that I'm teaching you the single plane swing here, very important stuff in the sense I'm working from inside out. In other words, my question to you would be, how can you get the hands and arms and then the club to move correctly if the body is not positioned correctly? Moe would often say to me, hit your positions, and that's what he meant. If your body is in positions, then you can produce velocity. If your body's out of position, you're compensating with arm movement, club movement, hand movement. So I'm working a lot inside out when I'm training you in this process here. So today, from this section here, I want to talk about Chapter 8 in the book, which is the transition. If there's one thing that I get more questions about than probably any golf instruction element in all that I do, other than all the differences in the single plane swing than a conventional swing, is the movement of the lower body. So let's get into a little bit of detail here, because this could be a very important part for you because of the thousands of people I've taught. This tends to be a sticking point and a challenging point because there is quite a bit of purpose behind what I teach in lower body and how we use it. But here's the thing about lower body. I'm going to teach you this, but there's a very simple way to accomplish it. So when you look at Moe's golf swing and you look at his backswing, what you're going to see is he hits his nice backswing position, and the very first thing that occurs is as he's going back, and this is how Moe described it, as I'm going back, I'm coming down. So as I'm going back, I'm coming down. So the lower body is moving forward as he's completing the backswing. We call this transition. It's transitioning. One part is moving this direction, as the lower body moves that direction. It increases the tilt of the spine just a little bit, and when this occurs, right, when the spine changes, the lower body, you move into that knee, so you're starting to move forward, this part's moving forward, the club drops down this way. Moe called that a vertical drop. You do not have to consciously vertically drop the club. I don't want anybody out there trying to drop the club. I want it to happen naturally. When you move the lower body, you separate lower body from upper body. So when you do this, if you're correct at address, you maintain your tilt into the backswing, and then you move your lower body first, like that, you're going to see that you easily bring the club down and drop it into this position we call the vertical drop back to the plane. It's going to happen naturally. So how do you accomplish that? You have to be able to maintain upper body position and lower body position. We call that separation. So let me show you a quick little idea here that'll help you maybe understand more of how this is working. I want you to do something very important when you practice this. And without a golf club, I want you to try something for me. I want you to just put your arms across your chest like this. I want you to go into your side bend, your tilt. I want you to make a backswing, right? I want you to hold your position, so don't let your shoulders move, and I want you to move your body into that knee like that. So you're not letting this move. And this is called separation. You're separating upper body from lower body. Now, then I have to ask you another question. How is that happening? Like, how is that movement occurring? And you're going to find that movement occurs because you've braced against this trail leg correctly. You've rotated and braced against the inside of this foot. The trail foot on the inside will be pressure, okay? And now that pushes the pelvis that direction. And there's your first transitional movement, which allows the club to then move down. It increases the tilt of the body just slightly. So now, once I get set, stable, I can then rotate back to the golf ball. This is transition. So working on the separation of the body is important. This is a weakness of a lot of people. Why? As we age, we tend to lose some range of motion in our body. And the other thing too is, and I've seen this a lot in the people I teach, is rotational movement is not something we do other than when we play golf. So very few of us develop rotational movement in our body. We never really separate. But all good rotational athletes, whether it's baseball, any type of rotational sport of throwing, golf especially, is we have to separate the lower body from the upper body. Because once we stabilize lower body, then we lag the upper body behind it as we rotate. The arms lag behind that, and we produce rotational velocity. And our arms can lag and then quickly speed up through the golf ball. So how this lower body stabilizes and functions is important. So let me show you just the total picture of this, and this is what I want you to work on before our next section. Moe figured this out, and the way he figured this out was he didn't do anything, like he didn't work on lower body movement. He didn't say, okay, I'm gonna work on my lower body. He didn't do that. But he did something very, very important, which is very unique to the single plane swing. I'm gonna do this with an iron just so it's a little easier to see. What he did was he basically created, let me put it this the right way, a place where you can't mess it up. In other words, he put his body in a position, to where it reached its full range of motion and it can't go any further. Let me explain. When I do two very important things in the swing, from the top of the backswing, when I transition into that knee, notice my foot is rotated. We accomplished that in the address. Notice the lead knee is flexed, right? Lead knee is flexed. Solid. It's in a very braced position. What's happening there is it's stabilizing the lead side. It's creating a break. It's basically saying, okay, you can't move this. See how it's limiting this? Moe is a genius. I'm limited here. Okay. Now watch this. I got to produce rotational velocity, right? So I'm going to rotate. Rotate this, pelvis, rotate torso. But watch what happens now. Is I can rotate, and as I rotate, this is stuck. This is like, I'm stuck. I can't move. But this isn't stuck, right? This is not stuck. Right side of my pelvis can move. You would see this crease across Moe's pants here. That is showing pelvis rotation around a stable lead side. But watch my torso. It's not stuck. It can rotate as well. So you see what happens here. I'm able to separate this from this because I'm creating a limitation in my pelvis. This is massive. This is important stuff. Don't miss this section. Now, the other thing he did was he kept the trail foot on the ground. Now, I don't care if you keep it flat on the ground or if you let it roll slightly. Either one's going to work to keep it down. Why do I want that to occur? Two very important reasons. One, it creates another limitation. It's stopping this. When I let this be limited, I can accelerate this better. It creates a consistent low point, right? Consistent low point. And there's another thing that's very important about it, is that when I make that motion occur, it keeps my spine in its position. Because if I lift it, see, my spine will lift. The trail foot is doing so many important functional things through the motion. I want the inside of the heel down or the foot down or the heel down, but I don't want the heel lifting up because it doesn't let the upper body separate. To me, it's really, really important. So all you have to do is learn to go into the lead knee and keep the trail foot down. And this is going to take care of itself. That's almost figured out. Beautiful stuff there. One final element to this, which is some more science behind it, which I want to end this section with, which I think is so critical to understanding this that I put it in the book. But here's how I put it in the book. You're going to see a picture of me having a tug of war, and by the guy you can't see having a tug of war, that's Tim O'Connor, by the way. So I'm having a tug of war with Tim in the book. Check out the picture. Why did I reference this as a tug of war? Because here, and follow me on this, when you swing a golf club, you're taking a mass on the end of a stick, and you're swinging this mass around your body. So this is trying to pull away from you. Now, it's trying to pull away in a straight line, because anytime the vector of this mass, even though I'm swinging in a circle, is always trying to go in a straight line relative to the force being applied to it. So in other words, it's almost like you're trying to throw the club away from your body, right? When you do that, the club is moving its fastest at this point, right through here. The club moves its fastest from right here to right there. It's moving its fastest. This is where the club has the most force being applied to the face. So in other words, that's where it's pulling away from you the most. So when you swing a golf club, it's pulling away from you. Well, think about this for a minute. Bear with me here. If you have force pulling out on you, you better have a counter force pulling back, a stable force, so that you can maintain the velocity of the club. So that's going to come from the body, right? Well, here's the thing. If I have a linear force going that direction, so I'm going that direction, right? I better have a linear force coming back this direction, just like that tug of war. How do I accomplish that? Very simple. We need to accomplish that opposite linear force with the position of the body. So when I keep the knee flexed and foot down, then I'm able to create a linear direction. That's why Moe felt, he used to always say to me, it's a crooked game and I got to figure out a way to make straight lines out of it. So the straight line of the body, this is occurring because of this. There's a straight line occurring in my forces because that foot's down and that knee's flexed, that I can oppose this force. Now, the question I would have for you is, if you don't do that, what happens, right? If you don't have this foot down, what happens is you get a linear, your body produces a linear force that direction and you come over top of it. I know this is a little scientific. In the book, all I want you to do, very simple, learn to, when you make that transition in your swing, stabilize into that knee, separate, learn to swing the golf club. I'm going to hit one here and I'll show you the finish. Where when you swing through here, that foot stays down and you're able to rotate the body into that flexed lead knee and create a linear force that opposes the motion of the golf club. You do that, your club will naturally start moving on plane on the downswing and you'll produce rotational velocity at the right bottom of the golf swing. That was a crazy session today, right? I went through so much information about swing plane, backswing, how to train it, and transition. I know it was a long segment. Thanks for joining me. In the next section, we're going to talk a lot more about the swing and how to control the finish position and stay in balance. Don't forget to subscribe and make sure you hit that little bell icon to get notified next time I produce a video. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you soon.